I'm Amanda from Playful Magazine, and I am here today with Eclat Crew, the Berlin-based electronic music collective for female, non-binary and trans. Hi, Ivy, you're the founder. Would you like to tell us a little bit about how you founded the collective and how it all started?
Thank you, and thank you so much for having us. We're thrilled to be here. I'm here with other Éclat members, Alex Rapp and Ignatoch, or Judy. So very, very thrilled to be sitting here with everyone today. So Éclat Crew started in 2018. I had been going to other music making events around Berlin. I had been really growing and enjoying being there. I'd been learning a lot about music production. I came from an acoustic music background. I'd never really made music with computers before, and I found it really intimidating. And the people at these other events were very welcoming and very helpful. But I was certainly not meeting many people from my community there. Like, to put it really bluntly, most of the people who were attending those other events were cis men. And it was very normal for me to be the only cis woman in the room. There were certainly very few trans or non-binary people there. And so it was a very homogenous environment. And I would try and encourage my friends to come to these events because I'd say, I'm learning a lot. Like, I know it can be a little bit, intimidating, but I swear these people are really friendly, really nice. And I could never actually get my friends to come with me. They would be like, I'm not ready. I need to learn more about my software first. I'm, maybe in a few months I'll get there, but I'm not ready yet. And when one of the events that I was going to stopped running, I was really missing it. I was really missing having music making community. And I decided that I wanted to start something for myself because I was lonely. But I also realized that I wanted to start something for all of the people that weren't feeling confident enough to go to those other events. And I just had this hunch that making something for marginalized or underrepresented genders would create a safe space that would allow all of the people who previously been saying no to start saying yes and to start attending. And I found a little space. There was a little independently run art space in Forsterstraße, which unfortunately is no longer there. But the organizer of that space let us use the space for free, which really helps when you're trying to get a new event off the ground. And I basically put an event on Facebook, told people about it. And the very first edition, we had 5 music producers show up, all people that I didn't know, which was amazing. And then the next time we started putting them on every 2 weeks. The next time there were like 7 people and then 8 people. And then gradually we were starting to get 20 people at the events once every 2 weeks in this little art space. We were really like jamming in there, of people coming to make music alongside each other and kind of share knowledge and gain confidence. And yeah, so now that was nearly 4 years ago.
Yeah, so I'm Alex Rapp. I'm a producer, artist, and teacher here in Berlin. I moved to Berlin September of 2019, and I was helping out with this organization called Beats by Girls. And at the time, the teacher there was telling the girls taking the class about Éclat Crew. And I was kind of in the back just helping out with the program. I'm like, actually, I think this is something that I might want to do. Because I had just moved there. I've just moved to Berlin pretty much alone. And I didn't have a community, a network at all. And it's funny that you said the first meeting was like 4 people, because the first session that I went to, it was like packed. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so scared. I was just like terrified to be there. I didn't know anyone. Everybody looked so cool in Berlin, and like just like I wanted to fit in. And within like 30 minutes, I was like, oh, okay. I can belong here, no one's actually yeah, but yeah, so Éclat became, for me now, like, it's really crazy to look back. The fact that I'm here right now, speaking about Éclat, is crazy, thinking about the first time that I went there, and I was like, I wanted so badly to be a part of it, because it helped me in so many ways. Just like having this consistent practice, going to a place and creating something and not really caring how it turned out. I mean, you care how it turns out, but once it's done, it's done. And you know, that was just amazing for so many things, and also for made a lot of great friends and connections.
That's so funny hearing about the first time you were there, because I remember the first time you were there and I was like, wow, this person made incredible music. And yeah, I don't know, like there's a listening session and everybody plays the music that they've made at the workshop, and yeah, I don't know. It's funny hearing like you were really intimidated, because I remember hearing your music being like really impressed. But yeah, I mean, I think that is often the way with these sessions as well. It's like, yeah, you make a mess, and then everyone's like, wow, what a fascinating mess. I can't believe you did that. But yeah, hi, I'm Judy. I make music as Ignat's Hook and Hannah Mouse. It's like high energy goth music. And I first started coming to Éclat because of Open Music Lab. Yeah, which is another music workshop that's like a little bit more taught and a little bit less like, yeah, a little bit, I don't know. It feels like the word crew actually means a lot in this. Like, it definitely feels like a collective. And I think I was one of the really early ones because of this connection. And I'm always really nervous about going to spaces like for women because you never know how trans friendly they're going to be. And then it was just always super welcoming, super encouraging, and yeah, would strongly recommend.
About one of the things you mentioned. I'd also like to pick up on one of the threads that you mentioned about Open Music Lab and some of the other events that go on in Berlin, because one of the things that was so compelling to me about the events that inspired Éclat were that they were spaces where people were given a certain amount of freedom to put into practice the music making skills that they were learning elsewhere. Like, Éclat is not really a teaching space. We don't teach content or topics. What we do at our workshops is there's a music making challenge. Everyone is given a set of samples and 2 hours to make a new piece of music. And at the end of the 2 hours, we listen to what everyone has made. It's celebratory listening. It's not critical listening, because it's all about celebrating the fact that we all sat down and made music together for 2 hours, and we all finished something in 2 hours, which is, you know, a feat in itself. It's worth celebrating. There are a lot of really great organizations in Berlin that are doing more subject-based teaching, where there will be a class where you learn a new skill and you extend your repertoire of the things that you know how to do. But for me, what was really important was having a structured space where it wasn't about learning, it was about practicing, because I am terrible at practicing anything. If I have to practice an instrument, if I have to practice any kind of new skill, I get bored really easily and I just want to throw away my laptop and walk away. But going to a place where you're being told, no, you have to sit here and just do the thing that you've learned, and you're not allowed to get up until you've made something. For me, I really crave this structure, because otherwise I'll just get frustrated. And that was this 2 hour, you make something, even if it's not your magnum opus, you've still made something, and also you can stop after 2 hours. If you really hate it, you don't have to ever listen to it again. That was a really important part of developing as a producer for myself. And I had a hunch that other people might find that slightly less structured space for people to practice. I had a hunch that other people would find that useful, and I think other people have found it useful.
And I mean, then you are together in that space, but when you enter a studio for the first time, how do you get started, or how did you get started?
Well, for the last record I made, a lot of the things I made in bed just before I fell asleep. I would like put like a simple or slightly chaotic rhythm together, and then play various different solos over it, and then fall asleep. Or like as I got like more and more sleepy, they would get more and more loose, and then in the morning I would wake up and find out what I'd made the night before. And yeah, it just like I felt like that kind of like half drifting off space was like a really low pressure way of doing things. Yeah, I mean like also like this. It's funny, this idea about pressure as well, because like this idea of like pressure at Éclat, where it's like you've got 2 hours, you need to bounce something, so you're gonna make something. Whereas also like, but like if you don't have that like 2-hour deadline with a bunch of people currently waiting on a Zoom call, or like sat in the room with you waiting to hear what you made, then like it's hard to find that room to like play with things, you know? And like making things kind of open-endedly, but then also kind of like building loose structures around. Yeah, I had a list of songs that I wanted to make for this record, and then there were all of these like small little bits of sleepy music that I was making, and then suddenly they all fit to things. Yeah, you're kind of like making jigsaw puzzle pieces that you're then kind of like putting together later.
Because I'm just also thinking about your music, which can be so chaotic and abrasive. And I'm thinking about you drifting off to sleep with these crazy rhythms in your head. And it's the most beautiful thing. Like, it's just a beautiful picture. So I'm really, really enjoying it.
I sleep faster than anyone you know.
I also have written a lot in bed and produced a lot in bed. But I also have my studio, and sometimes I walk there and I'll like just listen to music that hopefully inspires me or makes me angry for some reason. And then I'll get in my studio and like kind of shake. Which sounds kind of ridiculous, but like dance and kind of release whatever is going on in my day, and just like force myself to be in that moment, which works like maybe 50% of the time. But it's when it works, it's really nice.
As an absolute beginner, which would you say is the easiest way of getting started?
I would say to not do it alone. You can use YouTube. You can use all of these resources on the internet. But I think it's really helpful to have a friend or a teacher or someone even on Twitch that you follow consistently who you can ask questions to. I think it's really helpful to also have a buddy who's going through kind of the same things as you, so that when you get stuck, you don't get into this zone of like, oh, I'm so stupid and I can't do anything and blah, blah, blah. You realize that this is a hard thing and everyone struggles with the same hard thing. And yeah, I would also say in like when getting stuck, I think a lot of my students, they really want to finish one song. They start working on one song and then they work on this song for months. And it becomes a great song. But I would also say to take time to experiment and start making other songs so that you don't just get stuck in this one sonic world. Like what I love about Éclat Crew is you have your 2 hours and then you try something new. And I think that's so important for beginners, just so that you experiment and explore different ways of expressing yourself, because that's also like what music production is. It becomes so technical if you let it, but it helps to realize that it's just another form of expressing yourself.
This was also one of the really nice things about the workshop is like you're given this parcel of tools at the beginning, and like they really inform what you're doing in a way that like if you're just like working on your one song that you've been working on for 3 months, like you come back and you have the same tools that you were left with. Whereas if you arrive at Éclat and they're like, here, have this box of broken glass, these weird wind-up toys, and then this other thing, and then you're kind of like, okay, how do we put these things together? And it's very inspiring.
Yeah.
Well, and I think one of my favorite challenges that we ever did at Éclat was when I gave everyone a single kick drum, and everyone had to make a track using nothing but this one sound that I had given everyone. It was brutal. And everyone at the end many people at the end were distraught, but also very proud of themselves and what they'd managed to do, because people learned all of this different stuff about, creating new sounds out of a single sound, all of the different ways that you can manipulate this one sound. And when you're given a palette that is so limited, the question of making something good becomes less of a point, and making anything at all is a win. And I think one of the things about Éclat is when you're only given 2 hours and you're given something that you would never choose to do voluntarily, it takes a little bit of the pressure of having to make something good, or of your definition of good. It's just about finishing something. And taking that value judgment away gives you so much freedom to try a new tool, to try a new technique, or to just play. And I think that sometimes we get so caught up in the idea of, this is my self-expression, this is my manifestation of my ego in the world, and this is means everything to me. It doesn't matter anymore. It's just play. It's like, what happens if I throw 100 instances of the same reverb unit on this one sound? What will happen? And most likely it will crash your CPU. But like, at least you've tried it because you had the freedom to do it.
It feels like we're on the topic now, because if you watch these like live streams and all this, you see the all equipment, and it is also, I guess, very expensive, or it is very expensive, and that can also be a bit frightening. You say you can play around with all these various sounds. Like, how would you describe? Is there a cheaper way of getting started?
When I started making music, I was at art school and I didn't have a DAW. I just had like a wave editor, and like a little baby microphone, that I plugged into my tower PC, like the big boxy PC, and like a Casio tone keyboard, and then just like destroyed everything with distortion. And then if like you drag everything to extremes, and then you can kind of start to rein it back in again.
Yeah, there is a lot of free software out there. There are some new web-based. When we say DAW, for anybody who doesn't know what that means, it means digital audio workstation, which just literally means music making software. So yeah, there are some web-based DAWs that you can use. If you own a Mac, then it comes with GarageBand, so that's completely free. Yes, there's a lot of expensive equipment out there, but the best equipment is the equipment that you have. I was really fortunate last year to work on a workshop where a very experienced audio engineer demonstrated exactly how good results you can get from using your phone microphone to record things. So if you don't have a microphone, you can record a voice memo on your phone and put that in your computer. There's a lot of phone-based apps that you can use to make music now. So yes, Ableton is very expensive. Ableton Live or Logic is very expensive. These more professional music making software options, but you don't need the fancy stuff to get started. And what's more, if you really want the fancy stuff, if that's really where you want to start, there is a whole internet full of people who will help you get it one way or another. So there are definitely options. The best thing to start with is the thing that you have, basically.
Listen to a lot of like bedroom recordings. Like people have been making like great records on zero budgets for forever. Like since like the 70s, way before the 70s. Like it's not like if you listen to these and like you've listened to stuff that's made on a low budget and find out where the value is. Like, I mean, I think this is like one of the most important things to making anything is like understanding what is valuable about like the things which you are capable of making. Yeah.
I love that. That's so true. Like, you can fool yourself with saying that, oh yeah, it's so well, like, everything is so crisp. But then you listen to a cracked LP CD and you are like, ooh, this is amazing. If you get chills over your whole body, like, it's in the soul of it. That's really nice. Although when you listen to others, that may be easy to feel, but when you produce something yourself, like, how do you know it's good enough?
Well, I think about all the things that it should have, and then when it has them, I'm done. Yeah, also, like, I mean, when I get bored, like, I release quite a lot of music, and, like, a lot of just things immediately, like, unmixed, unmastered, put it out. Like, it was because I come from like a DIY punk background, and like a lot of my favorite records were made this way. And yeah, it's like if the song has everything in it that you want to put in it, then it's good to go. Like, I get bored of listening to it myself, and then I want somebody else to hear it, and then 5 other people hear it, 3 of them like it, and everything is great.
Amazing. Yeah. That's perfect. that's yeah, I think for me it's kind of the same, but more like if it's making me feel the way that I want to feel, or that I want someone else to feel, or if I can close my eyes and listen and not like peek open to like fix something. If there's like nothing that makes me like get out of it. I usually use reference tracks when I'm like in the final stages, just to make sure it kind of sounds like it's in the same like world that I want, or it has this like whatever same reverb tail, and just turning those off and trusting myself and knowing, okay, this is good enough for me. I like it, and I don't care about those other tracks anymore.
I think for me, one of the most important pieces of advice that I was ever given especially when I was starting making electronic music was, even when I was back making acoustic music, you never finish a record, you just give up on it. And I think, and that's okay. That nothing is ever going to be perfect. This idea of not having to perfect something in the moment, not having to sit with something and really drill away at it. The idea of being able to start something, like it, put it aside, come back to it in a month or 2 months or 6 months or 2 years is a completely valid way of making music. You don't end up artistically constipated. Because if you are sitting on 20 tracks that are not quite there, you will never get them out. Sometimes you just need to just go, okay, it's not perfect, but I need to release this so that I can move on to the next thing. Because otherwise you just sit on it forever.
You were talking a lot about, or you mentioned GarageBand and the more expensive software programs like Ableton, and yeah, you can find your way so you can do the trial period. What would you say is the best advice for someone who's curious about making music using software on how to get started?
I definitely recommend, again, like Alex said, having other music making buddies that makes such a difference rather than just sitting alone. Also, if you don't know what you're doing, get together with somebody else who doesn't know what they're doing and sit together, because even if you don't know what you're doing, two brains are always better than one. And the things that you can remember are not going to be a complete overlap with the things that the person sitting next to you can remember. And so they will remember things that you can't, you will remember things that they can't. And it's so much better having a real human tell you how to use something rather than a YouTube tutorial. So at the beginning of a YouTube tutorial is always that dude who's like, hi, sorry I haven't posted in a while, my cat was sick, and like, I don't know, and you get this whole update on their life, and then you watch the whole video and it didn't tell you the answer to the thing that you're trying to figure out. And it's so frustrating. Real humans are always much better.
Just to add to, again, the buddy, it's also maybe you don't have a buddy, but you know someone who is where you want to be. Just maybe ask them if you can like be a little fly on the wall while they're working and just watch them, which is less creepy than it seems. But I when I was first starting, I was very lucky to be in a place where I could just kind of be there and see, oh, so that's how they did that. And you also see that people do the same things in different ways. Yeah, I would say don't get discouraged because it's really hard. It's you're gonna get stuck, and it's good to like fight through it and figure it out on your own, because then you'll always remember it, but also that it's okay to ask for help. Those are my last two things.
Also, like, make a mess. Like, make a mess, bounce things, like, get them out of the software and into, like, an MP3 or whatever, and build a collection of, like, weird junk that you've made. And then, like, you look out on, instead of looking out on a graveyard, you look out on a junkyard. And there's so much, there's a lot more fun to be had there.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess there are so many people who are curious about how can they get in contact with Eclat Crew and join. And one thing that I'm also curious about within that question is like, how much do you need to know about electronic music before you start, or like the technical things?
Nothing. You don't need to know anything. You need to come with a laptop. So we do online events. We also do in-person events, although they're a little bit more sporadic since COVID. So you need to have something to make music on. If you come without a laptop, if it's a physical event, we can pair you up with someone who's got one. If it's online, you need to have your own computer and internet connection, but you do not need to know anything to come to one of our meetups, because a really big part of it is the fact that we're there to learn together, whether it's online or whether it's in person. In person, obviously, it's a lot easier to turn to the person sitting next to you and say, hey, how do I do this? But with the magic of Zoom, now people can come in and get a little bit of an orientation in whatever software that they're using during the time of the workshop. So we can share screens, and usually I'm there keeping the Zoom call open through the whole 2-hour period that people are making music. So anyone can drop back into the call and say, hey, I'm stuck on this technical issue, or I'm stuck on this musical issue, or hey, I'm just having a really bad time and I need to talk about it. You know, we can talk about emotional issues as well. But there's always someone there to support you in your music making process. And so we've had a lot of people come to Éclat and it's their very first time making music. And at the end of that, they come out of this 2 hours with this piece of music, and often people say, oh, you know, this is my first time and I don't know if it's any good again. And then in the listening session, again, everyone is listening to these things that people have made, and these people who've just made their first track ever in their lives then get to see people's responses to these tracks. And people always have wonderful complimentary things to say about the tracks, and it's very genuine. It's not some bullshit. It's always people saying, I really liked your arrangement. I really liked your choices. I think you've got a really good instinct for this or for that. And it's always very meaningful for people to see that they've gone from never having done something that maybe they've wanted to do for a really long time through to sharing the first thing that they've made. And I think it can be a really powerful experience for people.
Yeah, I when you mentioned that when people come for the first time and they share, every time that someone shares who is just like making something for the first time, I'm always like, I don't believe it. Lying. You're lying. It's all lies, because there's always something. I mean, there's always like some part of them in it that we can see, and I would say also like it's the most encouraging environment, because nobody's saying your kick was too low and this is la la la. It's totally complimentary. As it's just like, oh, it's the best. You need to have another in-person session soon. It's happening soon.
It's next week. Just probably want to be before then, but yeah, next Tuesday. We were going to have one.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things about like listening to tracks that have been made in 2 hours is that you're never going to judge it as though it's like a freshly released track, although some people do make things which sound like fresh, like they're good to go, ready, like get the presses running. But then also like what you'd listen to in those sessions are ideas, and are like what people have been thinking about, or what ideas are coming out of the samples that have been given to them. And like people who are making people who aren't making like perfectly polished things often have fantastic ideas. And it's always like really, really fascinating to see these things be so fresh. Also like the pieces which come out of the sessions, which are like 30 seconds long and just have like very little going on, are nearly always from the like really experienced music producers who are just like, yeah, I just really wanted to figure out like how this reverb unit worked properly. It's like, I got this new VST and I really wanted to, and then they produce like 20 seconds of like 3 beats and this incredible reverb. And it's like these are the, I don't know. These are the pieces which you kind of like, which I think people who are coming for the first time are afraid of making. And it's the experienced people who are making those. Yeah.
That's so nice. So how do one get in touch with you?
So we're on all of the normal places on the internet, Facebook, Instagram. We also have a mailing list for people who don't want to follow social media, which I very much support. So you can find us on one of those platforms and sign up for our mailing list there. We have a Discord as well. But really if you search Éclat Crew, ECLAT Crew. We also have a website. All of the usual things. And if anybody has questions, they're always welcome to send a DM on Instagram or send an email. But if people have got questions or concerns, are feeling a little bit intimidated about coming along, just want to have a talk about it and see, explore some of their questions, I'm always happy to talk about it with them. They can also just reach out to other people who are coming to Éclat and say, hey, what's it like for you? Because I know that for me, as the person who's been organizing it for a while, like I have my experience of it and I can say what I hope people experience there. But really, it's folks like Alex and Judy who've been coming for a while who can say what it's like coming from the outside. Please come join. Everyone's so nice. I think one of the things I really want to say about people who come to Éclat is there's so much love in the room and so much support, and everyone just wants everyone else to win. And I think there's very few places that we can go in this world where there's so much genuine goodwill and mutual support, especially in the music industry, because the music industry can be really toxic and especially, the electronic music industry, there's a lot of things that keep people like us away from music production. Experiences that people have walking into certain kinds of spaces where they just know that they're not going to be welcomed, or they're going to immediately be questioned of their right to be there. And I think that all of these years of built-up anxieties as any minority gender in the electronic music industry, whether you're cis female, whether you're trans, whether you're non-binary, if you present as different to the mainstream, we just have this internalized panic response that's going to tell us that we're not welcome, that we somehow need to represent on behalf of everybody who's like us. If we're not perfect, we're going to be letting everyone down, or we're going to be in danger. These fears about approaching a topic like electronic music production run so deep, they're so hard to fight through, and often we're fighting through them by ourselves, and that's not fair. You walk into a room like Eclat of all of these beautiful people who everyone has experienced very similar things. We've all got our own unique experiences of them, but everyone's coming from the same place of somehow being excluded at some point in their lives. And this is the one place that I've never felt excluded. And it really, oh my God, I'm getting emotional. And I just love everyone who comes so much. And I know that I wouldn't have gotten through this pandemic without Eclat. And I wouldn't be releasing the music that I'm releasing without Eclat. So I just love you guys.